Episode 76 of the Interpretation Station is Call to Order. Welcome, everybody. Bienvenuti tutti. We've got a very special episode for you today. Yes, it's another collab with me and my trusty Italian assistant, Sara Molinari. Say hello, Sara.
Hello, everybody.
Yes, it's a very special episode for a couple of reasons. So this is actually the first time we're going to be doing a text. Well, we're doing one from Spanish today, and it's very unusual because we're actually going to look at this text and to see how we would do it both into Italian and into English. We're going to compare the different challenges that me and Sara would be facing in doing this episode. The different syntactical challenges. I think, by the way, I'm going to have a harder job than Sara. It's just my guess. But I think it's an interesting, experiment to carry out to see how we would approach it differently depending on what language we are going into. Also, you'll notice behind me, the background is slightly different here. You no longer see that pink cuddly toy sitting on the shelf behind my back that you usually expect. No, because the Interpretation Station is on a holiday currently. I'm on holiday for the next 5 weeks, actually. 5 weeks. Yes, I am actually in Serbia, in the middle of Serbia. I have some local accoutrements. I have the local beverage that I'm drinking here, and plum rakia.
Cheers.
Makes the episode go through much. Thank you. Cheers, cheers. What do you say in Italian? Centiani. You don't...
Cin cin.
But do you not say something like centoani or something like that?
No.
Centoani.
Not here.
I'm sure I saw that on The Godfather, perhaps.
Oh, maybe.
On Il Padrino. I'm sure I saw it on
Il Padrino.
I think they said that once, or in The Sopranos, they said that once.
Oh, maybe. It could be anyway. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, and one other thing I want to say before me and Sara get cracking. So this is a statement I say that was done by Guatemala, situation in Guatemala. Now I've got very strong ties, believe it or not, to Guatemala. So my son's godmother, come here, son, show your face. This lad here, come here, boy, come here, son. That's him. That's young Sandy. All right, go away now. His godmother is Guatemalan. His comadre is Guatemalan. And we went to visit Guatemala in 2011, and it's an absolutely smashing country, best country in Latin America. And I want to do a big shout out to Isabel, Alma, Lico, Imelda, Eddie, Juan Carlos, Tavo, Naiti. That's all the ones I can remember. Buenos dias to all of you. I promised I would do that, Sara. So, okay, that's enough. That's enough of me jabbering on. Let's get to the text then that we're going to do. So, Sara, maybe you could just remind us exactly then, give us the background to this text, because Sara actually translated this text into Italian, put it up on the LinkedIn group a few weeks ago. And that's what we're going to be working on the basis of that translation that she did. You should be able to actually see the text up in front of you. Just remind everyone, Sara, then just the background to that text.
Yeah.
I've actually interpreted it about, what was it, a month ago?
Yeah.
And it was by a Guatemalan NGO, I believe. Isn't that right?
Yeah, I think so. NGO. Yeah, because it was Byron Paredes Tiul, Procuraduría de los Derechos Humanos. So it's Procura dei Diritti Umani. In English, it would be?
We talk about the prosecutor's office. Yeah.
That's
I think he was representing actually an NGO when he delivered the statement. I think he was speaking in the capacity of the NGO, but certainly he's he's a human rights prosecutor working in the field of human rights.
Okay. It was quite a difficult text because
it was,
because it has different names in it. For example, the names of the agreements, Acuerdo de Identidad y Derecho de los Pueblos Indígenas en Guatemala, for instance. And then some concepts, some important concepts, for instance, Cosmovision.
Yeah, there's some
For
interesting
example.
concepts.
So there was a mix of terms and different different acronyms as well.
One other interesting thing about the text, from my point of view, and I think hopefully I can find the audio. It should be on the internet, but you'll notice I don't actually think the Spanish was perhaps even the guy's native tongue. I suspect that he was himself an indigenous person, and a lot of these guys, Spanish isn't their native language. So there's a few weird syntactical constructions. There's a few weird choices of words. It doesn't all sound 100% natural Spanish. So that's again one of these that's one of the challenges with this text, turning his slightly wonky Spanish into good, clear, in my case, English, in Sara's case, good, clear Italian.
Yeah, in fact, probably my difficulty was due to the fact that you just mentioned, probably, that it was not really plain Spanish, probably. So I had to change and one thing is the spoken language, and another thing is written language. So probably if speaking, that's fine. I mean, that's a statement that could work if speaking, but when it comes to writing, it is difficult to stick to the sentences, etc. I mean, to render.
You have to play around with it, don't you, to make it sound
exactly
coherent, I think.
Exactly. Yeah. So.
Okay, well, let's get going. And I mean, Sarah's got highlighted here the most interesting parts, which are all in yellow. The first thing though that stands out for me, it's not actually highlighted, but is an example immediately of the different challenge that you face when going into English compared to going into Italian. Is the first the first 7 words, if you like. Sento sindi e vo a cabo la firma. So for Sara, for you Italians, this is pretty easy because you just replicate the syntax. Okay, so I see that you've put nel 95 fu firmato.
Yeah.
Okay, now we don't have that luxury though in English. We can't just say in 1995 was signed the agreement. That just sounds bad. So we have to already use one of the tricks in English when you hear this, when the sentence starts with the reflexive, we can say we've got basically 2 options. So there's the signing of this agreement, or one thing we'll put it straight into the we, what I call weeing. Okay, weeing. Do you know what weeing is, Sarah, in English when we talk about weeing?
You use we as a subject, or
it's a bit of a joke. I use this as a joke because to wee is a word that for children when they want to go to the toilet, they go pee pee, wee wee. Yeah, they're weeing. So we like to wee in English.
Okay.
But if you wee, if you wee here, if you say in 1995 we signed the agreement on identity, it doesn't work because it's not we, it's someone else, right?
Yeah.
But now there is another option that you can do in English, going into English. If you have the patience just to wait for the first few words, if you hear, okay, in 905 se llevó a cabo la firma, you can say in English, 1995 saw the signing of the agreement on identity. So if you're just patient, if you just hold back a little bit from the speaker, then you have that option as well. Okay, so those are the 2 sort of solutions that I would advise. Really, either go with there was the signing of in 1995, there was the signing of the agreement, or 1995 saw the signing of this agreement. As I say, in Italian, that is really not a problem that you face, though, is it?
No, because actually sometimes, very often actually, Spanish and Italian have quite the same construction. within
Yeah.
a sentence. I mean, it can happen, it's different, but most of times not. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's easier probably for us.
Right.
Uh,
Okay.
um,
Let's see. And the other thing that just came up for me. So the actual name of the agreement, Sarah, was I think it was the agreement
yeah,
on the identity and right of indigenous peoples in Guatemala.
yeah.
Another interesting thing in the next sentence, actually in English, 25 años han pasado. So in English, you can just say 25 years have passed. But if you really want to sound nice in English, we often say 25 years have come and gone. That's a device that we'll often use in English, just takes up that register. 25 years have come and gone. Now, okay, so reclamos y las demandas. So what have you gone for here, Sarah?
Yeah, aumentano i reclami e le lamentele. Por el incumplimiento de este acuerdo que consideró dentro del título 3 los derechos culturales. Quindi,
tell me, did you find this strange wording again here? Los reclamos y las demandas por el incumplimiento. Por el incumplimiento.
Yeah.
I thought it was a
Incumplimiento, it was hard to render in Italian. I opted for violazione, like the breach, but not really sure about if it was the proper word for this, actually.
I mean, we discussed this at the time. Yeah, I mean, I think I agreed with you that I think it.
Yeah, I remember I have a few doubts about it, so I've asked you. And
that's right.
The most suitable word probably at the end was violazione di questo accordo, actually. So, okay, acuerdo che
I think that sounds good from my end. I mean, we have in English, we can say non-compliance. I mean, I could say something, there was, non-compliance in English is fine. But so from the English side of things, what is weird here is that, okay, los reclamos y las demandas. So in English, you can use words like, okay, calls for, demands for. But when we use those demands and calls for, in English, we'll usually use them to do with something to happen. There've been growing calls and demands for them to implement this agreement, as opposed to saying there've been lots of growing demands and calls because of the non-implementation of the agreement. It's very weird sounding that in English. In English, if you're going to talk about the non-compliance or the non-implementation, we're more likely to say there's a growing anger, there's growing discontent at the non-compliance. But if you want to do something, then you want to say there are growing calls, growing demands. So again, this is one of those examples in this text where just, to me, the wording, the construction, the syntax is just slightly, the choice of words is slightly odd.
Yeah, I reclami e le lamentele, for example, lamentele, I was not sure about this word again. So, usually together with reclamos, we have lamentele, so it was the right matching.
Okay, so they go together often in Italian, right?
They often go together, yeah.
Right. See, we have another word in English also when you talk about with protesters. So not a word like, if you, again, when you're talking about protests, a good word to have in mind is grievances. What are the protesters' grievances? Like, what are they complaining about? What are they complaining for? Now, again, it doesn't really fit in this specific context. This is just generally, that's a good word to have at the ready whenever there's talk about protests and protesters' demands, grievances. Okay, and then we've done, well, then we went on to, okay, dentro del titolo 3. Now, I think he's referring here to acuerdo, titolo 3 of the acuerdo. So, and I guess that you've said, what have you gone for? You've just kept it as titolo?
Yes, I kept titolo 3. i diritti culturali, sotto il titolo, all'interno del titolo, però sotto il titolo si dice così appunto in italiano, sotto il titolo 3, eccetera. Quindi,
in English, we'd have to probably say chapter 3. I don't think we could say title 3, but I think we'd probably call it a chapter, section, chapter 3, section 3, something like that.
Yeah. And then, existe una crisis.
Reconocimiento de. Okay, again, this is again a clause that begins with a verb, existe, although in this, so existe, when we go into English, it's not such a problem. We can just say there is. There is a crisis in recognition. And you've gone for something slightly different, I see.
Yeah, because c'è in Italian, there is, the translation of there is that you just said in English, it's colloquial, so it's non-formal.
Okay.
Ci sono, so it's not really appropriate probably for this register. It would be better for me to use è in atto, it is in place.
Okay.
So
I get you. There's like a crisis taking place, right?
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Where in sometimes in English we could also say we're in the midst of a crisis, but again, you can just we can just say there is a crisis. It would be fine. And then it gives us these some of these indigenous groups. The Mayans, the Garifuna, and Xinca. I remember the Garifuna, they ring a bell. I remember where my Guatemalan posse lived in a place called Puerto Barrios, which is on the Atlantic coast, and just up from Puerto Barrios was a place called Livingston, which was where all the Garifuna lived. So I saw that name. Oh, I remember Garifuna. They're the various indigenous people there. And then what have we got here? En la práctica, sus valores culturales se encuentran desprotegidos. Okay, Sarah, I'll let you go first here. Just explain your rationale.
It was quite difficult to render in Italian this part. Okay, en la pratica, that was fine. Di fatto, i loro valori culturali non godono di protezione se encuentran desprotegidos. Letteralmente, literally, I would say, si trovano non protetti. But it's not the adequate solution.
Doesn't sound nice, huh?
No, with the register, no, absolutely. So I would say non godono di protezione. It's like saying they don't enjoy.
They don't enjoy, right.
I know I mean, you wouldn't say it, but in Italian, you can render in this way. You can render it in this way.
I was wondering in English how I would probably say something like are left unprotected would probably I could probably just say are unprotected to make it sound that a little bit smoother. You'd probably want to throw in the left. Have been left unprotected. But again, it's like, to me it seems slightly strange wording again in the original. But okay. Moving on, reconocimiento, respeto y fomento de los valores culturales indígenas. I think the interesting one is perhaps this fomento. I think both for recognition, respect, more or less fairly straightforward. But again, fomento it's interesting because in Spanish it has a positive. It can have a positive connotation. It can have a negative as well, but can also have a positive connotation. Whereas both in Italian and in English, fomenting something it has a negative connotation. In English, for example, we talk about fomenting rebellions, okay, or it's always something bad, fomenting uprisings. And I think it's the same in Italian, right?
Same, yes, it's exactly the same in Italian. You can.
So we need to find something a bit nicer. Something.
It's not appropriate for this sentence. I would say promozione.
Right.
I didn't
promoting cultural values.
Yeah, I didn't choose to keep fomento, fomentare, or something similar.
One thing I always say for this, for me, with Fomento, I hear the FO in Fomento, I say foster, fostering indigenous cultural values. So that's my sort of go-to solution for Fomento. But promote, again, would be good. To nurture is another good for English, would be another very good one. To nurture values, that's got a very positive connotation. To cultivating plants, that's maybe, yeah. So any one of those. Are there any other maybe synonyms in Italian you could give?
Promozione o sostegno.
Okay.
Support.
Okay. It's always good to have a couple, rather. Yeah, it's always good to have a couple of options.
Or yeah, basically, yeah, or any similar ones. At the moment, I can think of these two, but probably there are others, I think. But yeah, promozione, supporto, sostegno.
Okay. Okay, so then the next word we've got, this is an interesting one that often gets mentioned whenever indigenous people are talking, or the subject, or when the topic of it is indigenous people, the idea of this Cosmovision. And I noticed that Sarah has just gone for the cognate, right? Cosmovisione.
Cosmovisione.
And I think I would do the same in English, to be honest. I think I may have touched on this in the previous episode, but often with this concept, I tend to sort of leave it alone, at least when it's indigenous peoples who are speaking. Cosmovision, I just say. The alternative would obviously be to say something like worldview. And if it was perhaps a non-indigenous person speaking, I would perhaps go with worldview. But I think in this sort of context, I think it's acceptable just to say Cosmovision.
Yeah, in fact, I looked up in the several websites, etc., and actually also newspapers, etc., or news in general, they use this word Cosmovisione. That's
okay.
a concept that is taken as it is, Cosmovisione. So
yeah.
I think it could be Cosmovisione for everybody. Cosmovisione, Cosmovision. So
yeah. And then so again, transmisión de los valores. What do you do with value? I was wondering that in English. Do we transmit value? I think you can probably get away with transmission of values. Perhaps in English, maybe we sooner talk about passing on values. What about in Italian? Is it pretty much
trasmettere I valori, tramandare.
Okay, tramandare.
Person, proprio tramandare. Trasmettere oppure
another one for English, I thought maybe handing down values from one generation to the next, handing down. So there's a couple, again, I think there's a couple of ways you can get around that. Okay, what was the next thing, Sarah, for you?
For example, the next one, para promover, explicar y desarrollar aspectos como la enseñanza espirituale, il culto, la observazione, per esempio. Quindi promuovere, anzi no, sorry.
That's okay.
I have used a different solution because I was translating this part, pero se observa, tuttavia emerge. So, however, it emerges, it would say. Emerge un grave limite, una gran limitante, un grave limite nell'educazione del país, quindi nell'istruzione del paese, para promuovere, e poi ho messo in tema di promozione, on the matter of promotion, presentation and development of aspects such as...
Now, what are these aspects are quite interesting for me. It's how to convey these three aspects.
Yeah, because I have added a word that there is no, it is not mentioned in the Spanish version. In tema di, I've added it. So
okay.
it was not in the text, in the original text. But in this, the way I put this sentence required a support a support word. So I added in tema di promozione, because it was easier with the following of the sentence. Yeah, it was quite challenging.
Although I noticed again that in Italian, you can more or less get away with just using the cognates here. I'm seeing here insegnamenti spirituali, il culto, l'osservanza. Now, you try that in English, okay, spiritual teaching, that's easy enough. But cult and observation, if you would say that in English, you would just say, what's that? So here, the challenge in English is finding at least one word, if not preferably two, obviously, but one I think would probably do to convey some of those ideas of culto and observación. So the ideas I had was like beliefs and prayer, spiritual teaching, beliefs and prayer.
Yeah.
That, I mean, this observación, it's a slightly weird one. In Italian, does it seem slightly odd?
Yes, really odd. Osservanza, I put it to cut short because otherwise it was too heavy. The sentence was too heavy. But I can understand, for example, if someone tells me l'osservanza del culto, the respect for the religion, etc., the values. Ok, quindi osservanza.
And also one other thing, un gran limitante. So you're talking about that word there. That's again a bit weird in English. Let's say a limiter. And I was thinking, what's the best thing in English that we could say? One thing you can do is obviously in English you try and turn it. You could there's a limit. One note's a major limitation in education. Limitation. One thing we often talk about in English when something is being limited, it's a good word this to know going into English, is this, a bottleneck. They often talk about bottlenecks. Okay. So that's just a good word for you, obviously English A's, people who work into English to have in mind when something's being limited, okay? They often talk, if with any issue, something that's not quite going as smoothly as it should be, one of the main bottlenecks. So, okay, what next? Lugares sagrados.
Oh, the same in Italian. Luoghi sacri.
Okay, I think in English here, I'd probably go with holy shrines, holy sites would probably be my first thing to go to. And this is interesting, this lugares sagrados, for example, because you often, whenever there's anything going on about Palestine, Jerusalem, they talk about los lugares sagrados or santos in Jerusalem. The sort of standard, the best solution there tends to be the holy sites. So this is kind of the same thing. So that's what I think is the best English, holy sites. Okay. Or shrines. I mean, a shrine is also the same.
Yeah, territori sacri. We could also say in Italian, instead of luoghi, territori, but luoghi is the closest word as possible to the Spanish one because it sounds really similar. So okay, that's it. I mean, for this word.
Now then again, we have the idea of this cosmo. Now this one's a bit trickier in English. Okay, una conexión culturale cosmogonica. And again, you're lucky with Italian because you can just pretty much render that as
same as it is.
Cosmogonica, is that how you say it?
Cosmogonica, yes. Culturale cosmogonica con I monumenti e I siti archeologici. Sitios archeologici.
Now you see, in English, I don't think we can say cosmogonic. I don't. I'm not certain quite. We couldn't do that. We couldn't quite do that. It could be a cultural cosmic connection, I guess we could perhaps say, or maybe we have to just say spiritual. At this point, maybe you have to just step back from the original word, the words in the original, and just think, hang on, what would we say here in English? And I think there's the whole idea of the spiritual comes into play here. So that's I think what I would go. They have a cultural and spiritual connection with archaeological monuments and sites. Again, it's worth noting in English that whenever we're talking about these things that are historic, things that are archaeological, the best collocation is tends to be sites.
Yeah. And the next one is participar en la conservación y administración de los lugares archeológicos, quindi partecipare alla salvaguardia. We have safeguard here.
So you've changed it. So again, I was wondering, I think in English, English, I think we could get away with saying conservation. We do talk about, I mean, conservation, we do tend to talk more about environmental conservation. But I'm kind of thinking, okay, these are archaeological sites, and you do try and conservation of archaeological sites. Maybe someone to say, if you disagree with this, put it in the comments. But I reckon in English, you can get away with talking about conservation of archaeological sites. What Sara has gone with the Italian, the idea of salvaguardia, so protecting, safeguarding. I think you could also go with that. But I think in English we could do it. But you think in Italian, conservazione wouldn't work, huh?
Conservazione, sì, può anche andare bene. It could work. You can, it means preserve archaeological sites.
Yeah.
So, sì, la conservazione dei beni esiste. There is, in Italian, it exists. But in this case, because it was together with administration also, partecipare alla, I don't know, in this...
It does, you don't like the sound of it. Doesn't quite...
I didn't quite like the sound of it. So
right.
Salvaguardia, because we speak about salvaguardia ambientale, salvaguardia... we don't speak about conservazione ambientale. So
okay.
I was not sure about this word in connection with city archaeology, with archaeological sites. But yeah, we can.
I know what you mean. It's a bit 50-50, isn't it? Yeah, it's a bit 50-50. Exactly.
Yeah, it was.
I think under pressure, you could certainly get away with it. If you're sitting down, got plenty of time to think about it, maybe you find something better, but...
Yeah, but conservazione, however, could work in Italian.
All right.
And it was
well, that's interesting. So it's interesting for me. So in Italian, you don't talk about biological conservation, huh? You don't talk about that.
No, preservare... salvaguardare biologia ambientale.
Right.
And you speak about the environment, salvaguardia.
Oh, okay, there you go. There's a bit of general knowledge for you non-Italian speakers, but there you go. You've learned something a lot better of Italian.
But if you speak about siti archeologici, archaeological site, for instance, okay, conservazione is fine. Or conservazione delle opere d'arte. Work of art.
Works of art. Right.
So
okay, that's
you can use it. I mean, it's not wrong at all.
Okay.
I don't know. In that moment, I picked up salvaguardia.
So. Yeah. No. Absolutely. Okay. Let's go on down then. Okay. So la Procuraduría de los
Derechos. Yeah.
Probably just say here the human rights prosecutor. Or the office of the prosecutor. I think just easiest to say the human rights prosecutor.
And
in Italian
la procura dei diritti umani. Yeah, I don't have any other word for it.
Okay.
So,
Oh, now this later in this sentence again. This is one of these weird, slight constructions. Fijar aspectos de impulso de los derechos específicos. This fijar aspectos de impulso. How have you gone about doing this one, Sara?
Yeah, for example, here, definire aspetti per stabilire misure che favoriscano i diritti specifici. Quindi aspetti is the same as in English, in Spanish. De impulso, so definire aspetti. I changed a lot actually.
Yeah. So, I mean, to me, it seems like he's using a lot of words to say one. I mean, if I can't remember how I did this, And I can't remember if it was me that did it. I'd be interesting to actually look back. When you go into those into those audios, you can listen to the interpreted version. So, okay, I don't mind, guys. Listen to the English version. Perhaps I did it. See what I said. But I've got a feeling I would just really synthesize this. And I would say something along the lines of the state should promote, respect for cultural heritage, but also seek to promote specific rights. Something along those lines, seek to foster, this fijar establish aspects for the promotion of specific right. That's just a word cocktail. There's just too much stuff going on there. I think at least going into English, I would just be looking to strip that down and just say something like, seek to promote, look to promote.
In Italian, definire aspetti per stabilire misure che favoriscano, it's too much actually.
It's all just right.
I would
You've sort of fallen into the trap of the original, where you're trying to get every aspect of the original.
Yeah, exactly. So probably in a simultaneous version, I would say definire aspetti che supportino i diritti specifici dei popoli, eccetera, eccetera. Quindi direttamente definire aspetti che, farei così, che supportino, that support the specific rights of. So it's a bit smoother. So
okay.
Otherwise it's too much, too many words. And
that's always the problem with people when you're interpreting. It's not a problem we face that much going into English from other languages. But when you have like these indigenous peoples, this is one of those cases where the source language that you're hearing, it's not being spoken by a native speaker. So again, we don't run into that as much in the English booth, but then when we do, this is a classic example where we have this, it's important to try and avoid being dragged along by the language, that source, the language that the speaker is using, and just focus on just keeping things simple. Just, thinking, just stepping back for a moment and saying, what would we say again here in English that would make most sense? So that's interesting that here the English booth would be facing a challenge that the other booths have to face a lot, right? You in the Italian booth and the Spanish booth, you often have this where the source speaker is not a native English speaker, let's say.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, next, what move it?
It's not easy, actually.
No.
Ok, se sufre una crisis en la institucionalidad pública encargada del cumplimiento del acuerdo de identidad. We have too many words here.
Institucionalidad pública. I think I need to refill my glass. I'm sorry. I need to refill.
Refill?
Yeah, refill. How are you going to do this, Sara? How are you going to do this?
Siamo di fronte a... I changed everything. Ok, si soffre una crisi, I can't say that in Italian, actually. Siamo di fronte a, we are in front of, we are facing.
We're facing a crisis. Yeah. That's a nice way of doing it, isn't it? Yeah.
So, siamo di
I mean, we could just say there is, again, in English, we could say just there is a crisis, but I think, we're facing a crisis. Yeah.
I can't say check.
Sounds
I mean,
better.
I can say it, but it's not the register. Yeah. So
right.
So
and now you've gone, so this institucionalidad pública.
Yeah. I put it.
You've changed it a little bit.
Yeah, siamo di fronte a una crisi della. I turn it into a name as in Spanish, delle istituzioni pubbliche incaricate di adempiere. Complimento è l'adempimento for us in Italian, but I put it as a verb. Incaricate di adempiere a, because there's an A after adempiere, all'accordo sulle identità e sui diritti dei popoli indigeni. Quindi half is similar to the Spanish version and half is changed.
Okay. I mean, what for me, this like the institucionalidad pública, like for me to say the public institutionality, that's horrible. So I mean, in English, I think I'd probably change it maybe to the public authorities or maybe the public institutions. I think authorities maybe sounds a little bit better. Public authorities, I would perhaps say responsible for implementing the agreement or mandated to implement. So encargada, using the word mandate as a verb. Often,
or in charge
there's
of.
a tendency to only use it. In charge of, in charge of is more something we'll use like to do with the army, maybe. I don't like saying in charge of generally. Responsible for, mandated to do something. So that sounds best in English. But yeah, that institucionalidad, and it comes up again here, doesn't it? They repeat it.
Yeah, they repeat it. Il Presidente della Repubblica ha deciso di rimuovere le istituzioni di pace. So, il Presidente della Repubblica definió disolver la institucionalidad de la paz. Quindi disolver, I put it as rimuovere.
Okay, to basically eliminate, is that the idea?
Rimuovere,
right.
Remove.
Right,
that's
right.
The closest.
Again, yeah. I mean, the whole thing of this to me, this definir, the using of definir to say decide, that sounds strange to me. I don't know, does it sound strange to you?
Yeah, exactly. Probably.
I noticed you've gone for deciso, which I guess is from decide. So that seems a strange choice of word, that definir, to decide. And then this, I think in English, this dissolver, I think we can talk about dissolve. We talk about dissolving parliament when elections are called. Parliament is dissolved. So I think maybe you can say it here, but we'd have to say, you'd have to say to dissolve the peace institutions. So this is obviously a thing, las instituciones de la paz. That's obviously a thing. Sometimes you get these statements and they make these references to these institutions, which you don't really, what is that? And sometimes you just have to go with it, and you just have to assume that whoever this is directed to, they know what they know what they're talking about. So I guess it is, to dissolve these peace institutions. And in fact, the fact that it then says that there was a Secretaría de la Paz, it shows that La Paz is a thing. It's like an institution. So
Segretariato della Pace in Italian, but actually, I had no idea of what institution was. Hopefully, the person speaking has clearer ideas than mine. So I stick to it. So Segretariato della Pace.
I think, I think that's what I would do.
I didn't know what to pick otherwise.
It seems to make sense, though. It seems to make sense. I think it's fine.
I mean,
and then what you've got, so here we've got this brindaba insumos políticos. So insumo is a good word to have a quick solution for in English, certainly. And I see we've both gone for the same thing, because the idea I had was inputs.
Input. The same.
And I see that in Italian, you can just use that same word,
Yeah, that's the easier and the easiest and quickest solution, probably. So, proponeva input politici e amministrativi, oppure ideas, al fine di para impulsar, etc. So
another word idea value for English, I'm just looking here, para impulsar el cumplimiento. A word in English that we can say for impulsar could be to further the implementation of the agreements. That's a good verb to, again, have in your back pocket, to further something, to further your cause, to to promote it, basically. There's a synonym.
Infatti, promuovere l'attuazione o portare avanti l'attuazione.
It's better, I prefer, than to advance. Like, often you'll sometimes hear people going in English to advance something. And I think in English it sounds better to further your agenda, to further your aims, whatever.
Yeah. And then what do we have here? Okay. Lei del patrimonio culturale naturale. Legge del patrimonio culturale naturale.
Okay, that's an easy for you. In English, we probably, this patrimonio culturale is an important concept where we would say cultural heritage. You Italians can cheat, like your strikers in the football cheat
No.
and dive. You can just say.
Oh, by the way, I watched the football matches.
You watch the match, and you got the final tomorrow. You got the final tomorrow against England.
Yes.
Well, I'm sure you'll know. All Scotland will be supporting you.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah. Trust.
Oh, that's great. Good to know.
Yeah, so we have to say we can't cheat. We have to say cultural heritage.
Yeah.
Cultural heritage, that's an important one to know. And then, okay, una debilidad en la aplicación de la justicia. And you cheat again here, don't you?
No, actually, I hated this sentence when I was translating it because I didn't know how to render debilidad.
Okay.
In this sentence, I mean, I know what is what debilidad is. I mean, but it didn't sound quite Italian.
Is that right? It doesn't sound quite right, huh? I mean, I think in English we can say there's a weakness, there are deficiency, shortcomings. In English I'd probably be fine with just saying weakness. For me, what actually bothers me more is aplicación de la justicia, like the application of justice. So for me, application doesn't quite sit right. So I'm just thinking in enforcement of justice, maybe. Again, there's a weakness in the enforcement of justice. Again, in English, it doesn't sound brilliant, but I think that's the best you can do.
In Italian, una debole applicazione della giustizia. I didn't like this solution, but it was one of the first solutions that came to my mind.
In fact, you've turned the debole, you've made it an adjective, I noticed.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe that's this weak enforcement of justice. Maybe that's a good way to go, actually.
Una debolezza nell'applicazione.
Is that not nice?
Also the sound with Z, it was redundant. So I didn't like
maybe
sound.
That's a good way to go. Maybe saying a weak application of a weak enforcement of justice. Maybe that's a good way of doing it.
Maybe
turning it into an adjective. And then this last highlighted bit again, it's no visibilizan sentencias ejemplares.
I cut it out.
Right, you've turned it around, haven't you? You've turned
exactly. Sono prive, they don't have sentencias esemplares. Quindi sono prive di sentenze esemplari. They don't have. So I cut it.
They ignore them. They overlook.
Yeah, exactly. Sono prive. They are without.
I get what you're saying. I mean, I think these internal procedures. So I guess what they want is for a start, okay, sentencia in English. We'd probably talk more about rulings, for example, important rulings. So they fail to give visibility to these more important rulings. But again, that's a real mouthful in English to get that. And I think, again, if you're interpreting, you want to keep things short. You probably say
interpretation was really difficult. I mean,
you've got to synthesize. You've got to really like you'd say they overlook or they neglect these landmark. You know what? Okay, here's a very good word for you English speakers when you talk about rulings, important court rulings. So landmark, we talk about landmark rulings. So they fail to, or they overlook landmark rulings for those who, against those who've openly destroyed cultural heritage. So that's actually, I just remembered that's a good word when you're talking about big, and really important rulings, landmark rulings. So that's, I think, the best, but good luck. That's if the word happens to come to you in the moment. But I always like to just say these words. But if I keep repeating them, you know, eventually they'll sort of take hold in your head, and then maybe you'll get the opportunity to use them. Hopefully in an exam, hopefully in a competitive exam. And then the examiner will think, oh my, he's very good, isn't he?
Exactly.
He must have been watching the interpretation stuff.
Yeah, they have to think. They all watch interpretation station, so
that's it. Okay, so that's that. So that's an interesting text to do. So Sarah's given a glossary there of some of those terms, which is good. Perhaps we'll finish because you Italian guys, you have the luxury here. Sarah's done the text for you. So maybe if you scroll down, Sarah, I'll do a quick read through in English just to see how I would do it. If you put me on the spot, see how I would do it. Maybe something new springs to mind.
Like this one.
These guys always tend to speak fast as well. If this was an NGO, there's always a big time limit on the NGOs, and they want to get out as much as fast as they can within like a minute. They've got like a minute speaking time. So they always speak fast. You know, with NGOs, generally these big meetings, they're always going to speak fast. So the focus, you really want to prioritize speed. So this is how I would do it. Okay, 1995. So the signing of the Agreement on Identity and Rights of Indigenous Peoples in Guatemala. 25 years have come and gone, and there are growing demands and calls at the non-implementation of this agreement, which under Chapter 3 addresses cultural rights. Currently in Guatemala, there is a crisis of recognition of indigenous culture, Maya, Garifuna, Xinca. Although there is reference to them in the agreement, in practice, their cultural values are left unprotected. Education and cultural policy should be geared towards an approach based on recognition, respect, and fostering of indigenous cultural values. With respect to spirituality, there is recognition in the agreement specifically of the Maya and defining them as an essential component of the cosmovision and of the passing down of values. But we note a major bottleneck in education in the country when it comes to promoting, explaining, and developing aspects such as spiritual teaching and prayer and belief, as well as respect for indigenous spiritual guides, ceremonies, holy sites, which have a cultural and spiritual connection with archaeological monuments and sites. There was also recognition of the rights of the Maya, Garifuna, and Xinca to participate in conservation and in the administration of archaeological sites. The human rights prosecutor has noted that the state should promote respect for cultural heritage, but it should also seek to promote specific rights of IPs for indigenous people. If they're going really fast, I'll say IPs, particularly in terms of identity and cultural rights. But we are currently in the midst of a crisis in the public institutions that are mandated to implement the agreement on identity and rights of IPs. On the 30th of July 2020, the president decided to dissolve the peace institutions. These included the Secretariat for Peace, which provided political and administrative inputs for promoting compliance with these agreements. It's important to stress that in Guatemala, there is a law on cultural and natural heritage. Nevertheless, there is weak enforcement of justice, in particular of these standards, because internal procedures fail to highlight landmark rulings for those who have openly destroyed cultural heritage, not just of indigenous peoples, but of all Guatemalans. Yeah, that's a tough one.
It was tough.
There was a couple of things I know I didn't actually just there that I didn't quite get right. And that's me. And this is me sitting in the garden drinking. I should be completely at ease. And even there, I did a couple of things that just didn't quite go. But anyway, comments, Sarah?
Actually, no. I think we have said everything. Yes, that's all. I think, in my opinion.
I think so too. I think we've covered all the important things. As I say, there's a few interesting things to do when you have these indigenous groups speaking. Some of the vocabulary that you use is a bit different to what you might usually hear from diplomats and things. So it's a good makes a bit of a change from the text that we usually do. So, well, anyway, if you have enjoyed this episode, remember as usual to smash the like button. Remember to share it with your friends, Italian speakers, English speakers alike, Spanish speakers as well. Why not? Obviously, if you're watching the episodes, enjoying them, please. What do they have to do, Sarah?
Suscríbete. Yeah.
Okay, that one. Anyway, yeah.
Can't even speak.
Subscribe. Make sure you subscribe. Spread the word, spread the good word. There'll be plenty more of these episodes. Next week, maybe Sarah will do another one. We'll find another one. I've got plenty of time. I've got plenty of free time, so we can do more episodes. Keep following us, me and Sarah, on the LinkedIn. I'll be putting stuff up now every day. I know I've been a bit lazy of late. I've had work, real work. But now I've got lots, as I say, I've got time. I'll be putting something up new every day, hopefully. And yeah, it's been a pleasure, as always.
For me too.
Good luck with the football tomorrow. I can't make up my mind. I know I'm supposed to support Italy because I'm Scottish. I don't really mind, to be honest. I don't really mind who wins. I like the Italian team. I like Mancini. He seems cool. Chiellini. He's such a dude. Chiellini. He's hilarious.
Yeah.
And the Italian national anthem is the best national anthem of all of them.
That's the best one. Yeah.
When I hear the Italian national anthem for 2 minutes, I wish I was Italian. I sit there and I was Italian.
Yeah. That's
okay. Great. So what episode was this again, Sarah? Do you remember? Was it 76?
I lost count.
I think it's 76. 76. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, with that, all that needs to be said is that episode 76 of the Interpretation Station stands adjourned.
The train is now leaving the Interpretation Station.